Well, how are you? Winston Churchill once said that the further we look back into time, the further we can see into the future. Tonight we're going to do an experiment and we're going to try and find out if he was right. I'm going to go back about 5 billion years ago. And our earliest ancestors in Africa started to do something very strange indeed. They began to stand upright. The process took thousands of millennia. But in the process of standing upright, two vital things happened. The first was that as those early proto-humans lifted their head up, so the bones at the back of their skull were pulled downwards and outwards by gravity. Of course, it took thousands of generations. The second thing that happened was that their voice box, their larynx, fell to the back of the throat. And here it found room to enlarge, just as the brain was doing in the brain box. And over countless time, these two developments of the larger brain and the larger larynx led to something astonishing. It led to language. These early pre-humans used arbitrary sounds to identify themselves, each other's, the things around them. But I argue tonight that those sounds and language itself is virtual. Now, let me define the word virtual and take it back to its original meaning. The word virtual comes from the Latin virtualis, which means something that has power, efficacy, strength, but not necessarily with a physical component. That's what the word virtual really means. And I'm going to use it to describe one of our characteristics that is going to take us tonight as far into the future as it is possible to look. So the early pre-human began using virtual, arbitrary sounds in tens and thousands of long-lost languages to communicate. And then, as modern humans arrived about 40,000 years ago, some of them began to paint the walls of the caves in which they lived, in Spain, in France, in Italy and elsewhere. Some of those incredible paintings can still be seen today. But they are wholly virtual representations of the world around them. A painting on a stone wall may not seem to you to be virtual, but of course it is entirely virtual. And now we come much more up to date. Let's go back about 5,000 years to an area that we used to call Mesopotamia. Today it's called Iraq. And there, in the verdant valley of the Tigris River, the agricultural revolution began for the first time to allow people not to be nomads, but to settle, to have enough food and enough drink to be able to actually take time to think, as against just work. And these people, the Sumerians, the incredible Sumerian civilization, invented 4 virtual technologies that have created our modern world. And the 4 virtual technologies are alphabetic writing. That's the first one. Now, previously there had been ideograms and cryptograms and forms of hieroglyphics, although Egyptian hieroglyphics came later. But writing using an alphabet allowed complex thought to be stored and forwarded. So suddenly a virtual technology, writing, allowed information to be shared and kept and not lost. The second virtual invention was the invention of date and time. Now, of course, period had always existed, settled by the sun and the changing seasons. But the Sumerians invented the idea of days and hours and minutes. And all of a sudden they could say, I will meet you this day at this time. So the virtual invention of the division of periodicity into time and date laid the foundations for how we operate today. The third virtual invention was modern mathematics, which allows us to measure our physical world. And the fourth key virtual invention was money. One day in the temple, the boy who used to swap the chickens for the grain and the grain for the chickens said to a farmer, take this stone, let's call it a shekel. And when you want to come and get your chicken, just bring this shekel to me and I'll give it to you. And of course, the farmer went outside and he said, you know that idiot boy in the temple, if you pick up the stone and call it a shekel, he'll give you a chicken for it. But money doesn't exist. Money is entirely virtual, as we have discovered in the last 4 years. Value exists, the value that we've got in food, water, shelter, clothing, some limited forms of transport, but after that, all forms of value are invented by humans. And money is used to express the value. But it only exists as long as a community believes in it. It's virtual. It is the underpinning of our modern societies, but it's virtual. Now I come much more up to date. Let's whiz through the Greek period and the invention of democracy, entirely virtual. Let's overlook the Romans because most of their inventions were physical. The virtual stuff had been done. And we next come to the invention of printing in the 13th and 14th centuries, which allowed knowledge to be distributed in a mass form. This in turn led to the Renaissance and the virtual technology of printing, entirely virtual. A printed book is as virtual as an iPad. It just doesn't work so well. So what we've got is an entire virtual technology. Then we have the invention of longitude to join latitude, because the world is not really drawn up like a grid. And then as we rush towards the present, and we're going to get to the future in a minute, we have the inventions that flooded through in the Victorian period. Technologies for which we never have language when they first arrive. The projector that's throwing the image onto the screen behind me, in the English language, we called it a magic lantern when it was first invented. An automobile was called a horseless carriage. The locomotive was an iron horse. Radio was wireless. We never have language for technology when it first arrives. Through the 20th century, we had a plethora of virtual and physical technologies. We went through radio and television, computers, networks, and today we have the white heat of technology, the mobile phone or the smartphone. Now, my argument with you tonight is this. The phrase smartphone or mobile phone or cell phone is as helpful to us understanding the future as the phrase horseless carriage was to understanding the future of the automobile. We don't have the language to think about where it's going. As you all know in this room, we are in a period of accelerating exponential technology development. The rate of development itself is not only exponential, but the exponential element of that is itself accelerating. And what that means is we're going to have the same amount of technology development in the next 8 years that we had in the last 20. Think back 20 years. What was your mobile phone like? How many text messages did you send in 1992? How many flat-screen TVs did you have in 1992? How many airbags were in your car in 1992? The same amount of new technology in the next 8 years, then the next 5 years, then the next 3 years. And where will it lead? Now we're going to find out about Winston Churchill. Where will it lead? Gordon Moore, one of the founders of Intel, coined the famous Moore's Law in 1964 when he observed that the speed and power of computer processors was doubling every 2 years for the same money. In 1984, he revised that. He said the power was doubling every 18 months. In the year 2001, he said it was down under 12 months. And he has not commented since. So where do you think we are? Well, we, futurists, are limited how far we can look ahead because of virtual technology. And my argument tonight is that we, in essence, are virtual creatures. Our writing, our language, our mathematics, date and time, money are all virtual. And we are stepping into this always on, always connected, everything to everything, everyone to everyone, always and everywhere virtual future, which some people feel is alien. To me, we are the virtual ape. Virtual ape. Homo virtualis, not Homo sapiens. We are going towards a natural future. But we have a problem in looking much further ahead than the middle of the century. And the problem is called, by people like me, by futurists, the technological singularity. And the technological singularity refers to a development that is going to take place somewhere between the years 2035 and 2050. Might be a bit later, but somewhere around the middle of the century, when computers become as capable as human beings. Now, I choose my words carefully. I'm sure there will be some computer scientists in the audience. I didn't say computers become as clever as people. I said they become as capable as people. And this forms like a black hole in space, a point in time not far from now, many of you will live to see it, where computers become so capable that they can design computers the next year that are twice as capable, 4 times as capable, 8 times as capable, 16 times as capable, 32 times as capable. And this is called the technological singularity. Because we have no idea what such machines may be able to do. Will they become our successor species? Or will we modify ourselves to keep pace? The technological singularity is such a barrier ahead of us that for futurists it represents a point in which we cannot speculate. We cannot imagine what such machines may be able to create, what problems they may solve, or indeed, problems they may cause. Will they, in fact, free us, free our intellects from this biological envelope, this restraint? And will they head out into the universe, freed of such constraints as death and illness and time, to actually populate the universe? Is the virtual ape heading to the virtual future? Is it in fact our destiny? Was it our destiny from the moment we gained language? My opinion, it is indeed our destiny. The virtual ape is headed for the virtual future. I'm not anticipating living long enough to see the results. Some of my futurist friends, even those of my own age in America, grab me and they say, Ray, if we can just live another 15 years, we can live forever. And I say, you're kidding. No, Ray, you know about stem cell research, you know about DNA profiling, you know about nanoscale medicine. If we can just get there, maybe get to 2028, we can be regenerated, rejuvenated, reborn. And I say, so you'll be 95, you'll look like you're 35. Will you still want to go out clubbing? That's not for me. But one thing I do know is that this century marks the turning point and the beginning of a new chapter entirely for the virtual ape. Thank you for listening so attentively. Thank you.